It was only supposed to be a dare. Vesna had no business being at the Moonfire Festival, no right to stand among nobles and highborn wolves celebrating the Alpha King's 30th year. She was shadowborn, cursed from birth. The dark crescent mark hidden beneath her gown had already cost her everything: her mother, her betrothed, her place in the world. Legend said anyone who loved a shadowborn would die, and Vesna had learned to believe it. So when Tanith dared her to blow a kiss at the untouchable Alpha King, Vesna thought it harmless, a moment of foolish rebellion before she disappeared back into the shadows where she belonged. She pressed her fingers to her lips and released the kiss into the crowded hall, expecting it to vanish like smoke. But Caden, Alpha King of Valdrin, turned at that exact moment. His pale silver eyes found hers across the sea of bodies, and with one hand, casual as catching a falling leaf, he plucked the kiss from the air. The hall went silent. 1,000 wolves held their breath. Then his voice cut through the stillness, cold and absolute. "Come claim it." Vesna's blood turned to ice. She should have run, should have vanished into the crowd and fled Valdrin entirely. But the king's guards were already moving toward her, and the mark on her shoulder blade was beginning to burn. He would offer her protection, power, everything a woman in her position could want. He would also make one thing perfectly clear: he would never love her, and she must never love him. Neither of them understood how impossible that promise would become. The Moonfire Festival was the one night each year when the boundaries between worlds grew thin. Bonfires burned in every square of the capital. Music spilled from taverns and manor houses alike. Wolves danced in the streets regardless of station, their faces hidden behind elaborate masks that granted temporary anonymity. It was also the one night Vesna Aldridge was absolutely forbidden to leave her father's estate. Yet here she stood, pressed against a marble pillar in the grand hall of the royal palace, wearing a borrowed gown and a mask of black feathers. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain the wolves around her could hear it. "What I am doing here," she thought. "If father finds out." But her father was attending to business in the eastern provinces. Her sister Corliss was holding court somewhere in this very hall. And Tanith, beautiful reckless Tanith, had appeared at Vesna's window 3 hours ago with a stolen invitation and a wicked smile. "One night," Tanith had said. "One night to feel alive." So Vesna had come. For one night, she would pretend the mark on her shoulder blade did not exist. She would pretend she was not shadowborn, not cursed, not the reason her own mother had died. The thought made her chest ache. Instinctively, she pressed her palm against her shoulder where the dark crescent lay hidden beneath silk. It was cool to the touch, dormant. As long as she kept her emotions contained, the mark would not spread. That was the curse of the Shadowborn. Born during the black eclipse that occurred once every 100 years, they carried darkness in their blood. The crescent mark was merely a sign. The true horror lay in what it represented. "Love a Shadowborn," the old texts warned, "and death will follow." Vesna had not believed it as a child. She had started to believe it when her mother collapsed one morning with no warning, her heart simply stopping. The healers found no cause. Vesna found only guilt. Her betrothed had died 2 years later. A riding accident, they called it. But Vesna had seen the way the shadows seemed to reach for him in that final moment. After that, her father had locked her away. "For your own protection," he claimed. But Vesna knew the truth. He was protecting others from her. "Vesna," Tanith hissed, appearing at her elbow with 2 goblets of wine. "Stop hiding behind that pillar." "I am enjoying not being executed for sneaking into the royal palace," Vesna replied. Tanith rolled her eyes. "The masks grant anonymity. Even the king cannot demand someone reveal their face during the Moonfire Festival. It is tradition." The hall was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across hundreds of masked revelers. Silk gowns and velvet jackets swirled in a sea of color. And at the far end of the hall, elevated on a dais draped in midnight blue, sat the empty throne of the Alpha King. "He has not appeared yet," Tanith observed. "They say he rarely attends these things." "Then why hold the festival in his honor?" "Because the king turns 30 tonight." Tanith sipped her wine. "An important year for an unmated alpha. The council has been pressuring him to choose a queen." Vesna had heard the rumors even in her isolation. Alpha King Kadon was legendarily cold, beautiful as a winter storm and twice as deadly. "The king feels nothing," people said. "No joy, no anger, no desire. He is hollow inside." A sudden hush fell over the hall. Every head turned toward the great doors. "He is here," Tanith breathed. Alpha King Kadon of Valdrin walked into the hall, and the very air seemed to crystallize around him. He was tall, taller than any man Vesna had ever seen, with hair the color of pale frost. His face was all sharp angles and cold beauty. He wore black, of course, simple and devastating. But it was his eyes that made Vesna's breath catch. Silver gray, pale as winter moonlight, and utterly empty. This was not a man who felt nothing. This was a man who had forgotten how. The crowd parted before him. He walked to the dais and lowered himself onto his throne without acknowledging anyone. Then he raised one hand, and the orchestra resumed playing. "Gods above," Tanith murmured. "He is even more terrifying in person." Vesna could not look away from him. Even sitting motionless, he commanded every scrap of attention in the room. He looked bored, distant, alone despite hundreds surrounding him. For one strange moment, Vesna almost felt sorry for him. Then Tanith grabbed her arm. "I dare you," she said. "What?" "Blow him a kiss." Tanith was grinning, the cold, untouchable Alpha King. "Blow him a kiss and see if he notices." "Absolutely not," Vesna hissed. "What is the worst that could happen? Your mask hides your identity." Vesna stared at her friend. "You have spent your entire life hiding," Tanith continued, her voice softening. "You deserve one moment of freedom." The words struck something deep inside her. Vesna looked back at the king, at his frozen face and empty eyes. One kiss, blown across a crowded hall. It meant nothing. Before she could lose her courage, Vesna raised her fingers to her lips. The mark on her shoulder blade tingled. A warning. But she ignored it. She kissed her fingertips and blew. And Alpha King Kadon turned his head. Across the entire hall, his silver eyes found hers. Vesna's heart stopped. Everything stopped. He should not have noticed. It was impossible. But his gaze locked onto hers with devastating precision. And then, deliberately, he raised one hand and plucked the kiss from the air. The hall fell silent. The king studied his closed fist. Then his eyes returned to Vesna, and his lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. "Come claim it," he said. His voice was soft, but it carried like thunder. Vesna could not move, could not think. Tanith had vanished. The crowd was staring, and the Alpha King was waiting, her kiss trapped in his hand. Then the guards began to move toward her. The guards did not touch her. They did not need to. The crowd parted around Vesna, and she found herself walking forward on numb legs. "This cannot be happening," she thought. He caught it. How is that possible? She reached the base of the dais and stopped. The music had died completely. Every eye was fixed on her. The king leaned forward, his silver gaze raking over her masked face. Up close, he was even more devastating. Beautiful, yes, but also somehow wrong, as if something vital had been drained from him. "Remove your mask," he said. Vesna's blood ran cold. "Your Majesty," she managed, "the Moonfire tradition states." "I am aware." He tilted his head. "I am also aware that I caught your kiss in front of my entire court. That suggests a connection worth investigating." "There is no connection," Vesna said. "It was a foolish dare." "Then you will have no objection to showing me your face." The trap closed around her. If she refused, she defied the king. If she complied, he would see what she was. I cannot, Vesna said. Cannot or will not? Both. Something flickered in those silver eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. He rose from his throne, towering over her. Walk with me, he said. It was not a request. Vesna followed him through a door at the side of the hall, into a corridor lined with portraits of previous kings. The door closed behind them. Caden kept walking. Vesna scrambled to keep pace. Your Majesty, she tried. If you release me, I swear I will leave Valdrin. He stopped so abruptly she nearly collided with his back. When he turned, his face was inches from hers. You are afraid of me, he said. Everyone is afraid of you, Vesna replied without thinking. Something strange crossed his features. Surprise. Or something sadder. Yes, he said. They are. He studied her for a long moment. Then he uncurled his fingers. His palm was empty. The kiss, Vesna breathed. Where? I do not know. I felt it land. I closed my hand around it. And now, it is gone. Vesna's mark throbbed. She pressed her hand against her shoulder instinctively. You are injured? He said, tracking the movement. No. Then why do you clutch your shoulder? Vesna dropped her hand. It is nothing. His gaze sharpened. He stepped closer. Vesna stepped back until her shoulders hit the wall. You wear a mask, he said. You refuse to reveal your face. You carry some hidden wound. And somehow I sensed your kiss across a crowded hall. He leaned in, his scent washing over her. Winter pine and cold iron. Who are you? No one, Vesna breathed. I am no one. His hand rose toward her mask, then stopped. I could remove this myself, he said. I could demand answers. That is what a king should do. Then why do you not? Because when I caught that kiss? He paused, and for one moment the coldness in his eyes fractured. I felt something. Vesna's pulse faltered. I have not felt anything in 7 years, the king continued. The healers call it the hollowing, a curse on my bloodline. Each generation the king loses the ability to feel. Warmth, taste, emotion. Everything fades until we are empty vessels. He looked down at his hand. I cannot feel the cold anymore. Food tastes like ash. Joy, grief, desire. They come as memories rather than experiences. He met her eyes. But when I caught your kiss, for one instant I felt warmth. Vesna could not speak. She brought death, not life. If the king felt something from her kiss, it was not a blessing. It was a trap. I want to make you an offer, Caden said. What kind of offer? Become my consort. Vesna's mind went blank. Not my queen, he clarified. A consort, a companion, someone who owes me nothing but presence and expects nothing but protection. Why me? You do not know my face, my name, anything about me? Exactly. I have spent 12 years with women hoping to thaw my frozen heart. He smiled without warmth. I cannot be thawed. I am simply emptying. And I am tired of pretending otherwise. He stepped back. You hid your face. You refused to court my attention. You seemed horrified when I caught your kiss. That makes you the most honest person I have encountered in years. Vesna's thoughts raced. If she accepted, she would be trapped where anyone might discover her secret. If she refused, he might investigate anyway. But if she accepted, she would have protection. Her father could not reach her here. There is something you should know, she said carefully. About why I hide. Caden shook his head. I do not need to know. You do. I do not, he repeated. I am offering you safety and anonymity. In exchange, I ask only that you stand beside me and never expect my love. That word hung between them. I cannot love you, he continued. The hollowing has stolen that. So if you accept, Understand what you are agreeing to. A cold bed, a cold king, a cold life. Vesna thought of her father's estate, the locked doors, the years of isolation. Then she thought of the warmth the king claimed to have felt. That was the danger. If proximity to her eased his hollowing, the curse would activate, and Caden would die. I should refuse, she thought. But when she opened her mouth, different words emerged. I accept. News traveled fast in Valdrin's court. By sunrise, every noble house had heard the rumors. The Alpha King had chosen a masked consort. He had forbidden anyone from seeing her face. The whispers were relentless. She must be hideously scarred. Perhaps she is foreign royalty. Maybe she is no one at all. Vesna heard all of it from behind her chamber doors. The rooms were beautiful, larger than any space she had occupied. A canopy bed draped in silver silk, a fireplace constantly burning, and 6 attendants, all wearing dark glasses. They cannot see you, the head attendant had explained. His Majesty arranged for staff from the convent of closed eyes. We navigate by scent and sound. The king's thoughtfulness stunned her. The door opened. The head attendant, a tall woman named Morrow, announced, "You have a visitor, my lady." Vesna's stomach dropped. "Who?" "She says she is your sister." "Corliss." "Of course. Tell her I am unwell. She claims it is a family emergency." Vesna closed her eyes. There was no emergency. Corliss simply wanted to confirm her suspicions. Let her in. Moments later, Corliss swept into the room like a perfumed storm. Her older sister was beautiful. Golden hair, blue eyes sparkling with calculated charm. She had inherited their mother's beauty without any of her warmth. "So it is true," Corliss said. "My little shadow sister has clawed her way into the king's bed. I am not in his bed. I am his consort. There is a difference. The court does not think so. They say the king keeps you hidden because he is ashamed of your face." Corliss tilted her head. "I know the truth. You are simply marked." Vesna's hand flew to her shoulder. "I remember when the mark appeared," Corliss continued. "You were 12. Mother nearly fainted. Father locked himself away for 3 days. And I learned what my little sister truly was." "I never hurt anyone," Vesna said. "Mother died." Her heart stopped. The healers said it was natural. Natural. Corliss spat the word. "You clung to her constantly, loved her with your whole cursed heart. And one morning she collapsed. That is what Shadowborn do. They love, and death follows." A knot formed in Vesna's stomach. She had heard these accusations before, but hearing them from Corliss, who had once braided her hair and told her bedtime stories, cut deeper. "What you want?" Vesna asked. "I want you to leave. Go back to your tower. Before you destroy another life. The king is not innocent." "No. But he is powerful. And when he dies because you could not control your cursed heart, the kingdom will fall into chaos." Corliss stepped closer. "The court will discover what you are, and when they do, they will burn you alive." Vesna felt the crescent throb. A warning. "Leave," she said. "Now." Corliss moved toward the door, then paused. "When the king discovers what you truly are, he will destroy you himself." She swept out. Vesna sank onto the bed, shaking. She should leave. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. But where would she go? Her father's estate was a prison. The wider world held no safety for a Shadowborn, and there was the other problem. When the king had caught her kiss, she had felt something too. A warmth that had nothing to do with the curse. What if being near him eased the darkness inside her? A knock interrupted her spiral. "My lady," Morrow called. "The king requests your presence in his study." Vesna followed Morrow through corridors she did not yet know. The study was smaller than expected. Books lined every wall. A fire burned despite the warmth. The king stood by the window. "Leave us," he said. Morrow withdrew. Your sister visited you, Kaden said. Vesna blinked. You know, I know everything that happens within these walls. She warned you to leave. Yes. And will you? No. Something in his posture shifted. Good. Then we have business to discuss. He retrieved a document from his desk. This is a formal agreement. Your rights, responsibilities, protections. There is a clause about privacy. No one may compel you to reveal your face. The punishment for attempting to unmask you forcibly is imprisonment. Vesna looked up sharply. I do not know what you are hiding, he said. But I gave my word you would be safe here. Her chest constricted. Why do you care? Because when I caught your kiss, I felt warmth. And when you entered just now, I felt it again. His voice dropped. I have not felt warmth in 7 years. I had forgotten what it was like. Vesna's heart stuttered. Whatever you are hiding, he continued, I do not care. All I care about is that you stay. The crescent flared hot. A warning, a reminder of what she did to those who cared for her. But when Vesna opened her mouth, the only word that emerged was, yes. The king smiled. Just a small crack in his frozen mask. It was the most terrifying thing Vesna had ever seen, because saving herself might mean destroying him. 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm. Vesna learned the palace, its hidden corridors and quiet gardens. She taught the staff, the blind attendants who served her with gentle efficiency. She learned the rhythms of court life, but she did not learn the king. Kaden remained a mystery. He summoned her occasionally for formal dinners, where they exchanged perhaps a dozen words. He requested her presence at court functions where she stood silently at his side. He never touched her, never asked personal questions. Vesna told herself this was what she wanted. Distance was safety. But sometimes, late at night, she wondered what it would feel like if he did care. Stop it, she scolded herself. That way lies death. On the 22nd night, a knock came at her door past midnight. My lady, Morrow called. The king requests your presence. Vesna pulled a robe over her nightgown, secured her veil, and followed Morrow through silent halls. Morrow stopped before an unfamiliar door. The king is inside. He asked that I leave you here. What is this room? His private chambers, my lady. Vesna's pulse faltered. The king's chambers. Middle of the night. She should refuse, but something in Morrow's voice made her hesitate. Is he well? The king has not been well for a very long time, my lady. Vesna pushed open the door. The chambers were larger than hers, but far less decorated. Bare stone walls, a massive bed, a fire burning in the hearth. And standing before the fire, his back to her, was Kaden. He wore only a thin shirt and loose trousers. His pale hair hung loose. Close the door, he said without turning. Vesna obeyed. Come here. She crossed the room. As she drew closer, she noticed something strange. Despite standing before a roaring fire, the king was shivering. Your Majesty, she said gently, are you ill? He turned and she gasped. His skin was nearly translucent. Veins of pale blue traced across his cheekbones like frost patterns. His silver eyes were clouded with pain. The hollowing, he said. It advances. What can I do? Nothing. No one can do anything. He smiled grimly. But I find that your presence eases the cold somewhat. You asked me here because my presence helps you? I asked you here because I am freezing from the inside out, and when I think of you, the ice retreats. His voice cracked. I do not understand the connection, but I am desperate enough to grasp at anything. Vesna's crescent throbbed. Her presence should bring death, not comfort. Unless the curses were interacting, shadow and ice, death and hollowing. What if they canceled each other out? The thought was dangerous, completely without evidence, but the king stood before her shaking, more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. Tell me what you need, she said. Just stay. Just stay near me. Vesna moved closer. The cold radiating from him hit her like winter wind. She should have stepped back. Instead, she took his hand. His fingers were ice. So cold they burned. But she did not let go. Caden made a sound between a gasp and a groan. His other hand covered hers, pressing her palm against his frozen skin. Warmth, he breathed. How are you doing this? I do not know. But I feel something too. It was true. Where their skin touched, heat bloomed. Something deeper, reaching into her bones, pushing back the darkness. The crescent on her shoulder blade went completely still. In all her years, it had never done that. The frost patterns on his skin were fading, color returning to his cheeks. What you are, he murmured. She should tell him everything, but the words would not come. I am someone who understands being trapped by something you cannot control, she said. Caden studied her veiled face. Then he raised his hand to her cheek. May I? He asked. He was asking permission, despite his power and desperation. Yes, she breathed. His fingers brushed the fabric of her veil, but instead of lifting it, he traced her jaw through the thin material, then her cheekbone. I do not need to see you, he said. I can feel you. That is enough. Vesna closed her eyes. Tears burned behind her lids. When his lips pressed against her forehead, gentle and cold and remarkably tender, her lungs refused to work. Stay tonight, he murmured. Not for that. Just stay. She should refuse. But the crescent was silent, the darkness dormant, and touch did not feel like tragedy. Yes, she said. They lay together on his bed, fully clothed, his arms wrapped around her. Within minutes, his shivering stopped. His breathing evened. Vesna lay awake for hours, wondering if she had found the one person she could not destroy, or if she was delaying the inevitable. After that night, everything changed. The king maintained public distance, but every night he summoned her to his chambers. They did not make love. Not yet. But they lay together in darkness, her warmth seeping into his frozen bones, his presence quieting the shadow that had haunted her since birth. They talked for hours about politics, philosophy, and childhood memories neither had shared with anyone. He told her about the hollowing, how it had claimed his father at 42, his grandfather at 38, how it stripped away sensation gradually, how he had stopped feeling joy at 19, grief at 21, anything at all by 23. I remember what happiness felt like, he said one night, like a story someone told me long ago. And now? Now, when I touch you, I catch glimpses, brief flashes of what I lost. He pulled her closer. It is not the same as feeling, but it is more than I have had in years. Vesna told him about her childhood, her mother's warmth, her father's coldness, her sister's cruelty, the tower where she had spent most of her life. What you dreamed of? He asked. A foolish thing. I dreamed of being loved without consequence. The words hung between them, but he did not ask more. He simply held her tighter and pressed his lips to her temple. Some dreams are not foolish, he murmured. Some are simply impossible. Weeks passed. The court whispered constantly about the mysterious consort who shared the king's chambers but never emerged with child. He is feeling again, the whispers said. The consort has healed him. But Vesna knew better. She had not healed him. She had paused him. Their curses were locked in stalemate, her shadow holding back his ice, his hollowing suppressing her death. The moment that balance broke, they would both be destroyed. She tried to maintain distance, but every night, when he held her and whispered secrets, her resolve crumbled. I am falling in love with him, she realized one morning, watching him sleep. This will kill him, she thought, and I cannot stop. That afternoon, the king summoned her to his study. His expression was serious. What is wrong? She asked. The council demands I produce an heir. They have given me 6 months to marry properly or name a successor. Vesna's heart cracked. You should marry properly then. Find a princess. I have what I need. His silver eyes met hers, burning with intensity. I have you, but I cannot give you children. You give me warmth. You give me feeling. He crossed the room and took her hands. Do you understand how long it has been since I had that? Vesna shook her head, tears streaming. You do not understand. If you care for me, if I what? He pressed. If you love me, she choked out, you will die. Caden went still. What do you mean? But Vesna could not answer. She pulled free and fled, her sobs echoing behind her. 3 days passed. Vesna refused every summons, kept her doors barred against everyone, including the king. She knew it was cowardly. She owed him an explanation. But every time she tried to form the words, she saw her mother collapsing, her betrothed falling. I am protecting him, she told herself. By staying away, I am keeping him alive. But the crescent burned constantly now. The darkness was spreading, crawling up toward her neck. Without his presence to balance it, her curse was advancing. She would become what her father always feared, a shadowborn consumed by her own darkness. Better that than killing him. On the third night, she stood before her mirror, examining the shadow staining her collarbone. By tomorrow, it would reach her throat. A violent crash interrupted her. Her chamber door burst open. Caden stood in the doorway, chest heaving, silver eyes wild. 2 terrified guards flanked him. Leave us, the king commanded. The guards fled. Caden stepped inside and kicked the ruined door closed. His gaze found Vesna immediately, standing frozen before the mirror, her face veiled but her neck exposed. His eyes fixed on the shadow spreading across her skin. You have been avoiding me, he said. Yes. Why? She could not answer. He crossed the room and knelt before her chair. His hands gripped the armrests. Look at me, he demanded. She could not. He reached up and lifted her veil. Vesna flinched, but it was too late. She heard his sharp breath, felt his gaze travel across her features, the gray eyes, the pale lips, the darkness staining her jaw like bruises. What is this? He breathed. My curse, the truth I have been hiding. He touched the shadow on her jaw. The contact made the darkness retreat. Tell me. So she did. Everything. The black eclipse, the shadowborn mark, her mother's death, her betrothed's fall, the years of isolation. That is why I fled, she finished. If you love me, the curse will activate, your heart will stop. Caden was silent. His hand remained on her jaw. Then he said something she did not expect. I do not care. What? I do not care. His eyes were fierce. You think I fear death? I have been dying inside for 7 years. The hollowing has taken everything except you. You do not understand. If you truly love me, then let my heart stop. At least I will have felt something first. He pulled her into his arms. I love you, he said. I did not mean to. I told myself I was incapable. But every night you lay beside me, I fell deeper. You are the only warmth I have known in 7 years. No, Vesna sobbed, please. But it was too late. The crescent flared white-hot. The shadows on her skin began to writhe, spreading faster, reaching for him. At the same moment, ice crackled across Caden's skin, frost racing down his arms, his neck, his face. Both curses, activated by love, began to devour them. Caden staggered, clutching his chest. Frost spread across his lips, his eyelashes. What is happening? He gasped. The curses are feeding on each other, Vesna realized. My darkness, his ice. They were balanced before. But love tipped the scales. They collapsed together, hands reaching for each other but unable to connect. Frost and shadow spread between them like opposing dooms. The last thing Vesna saw was Caden's face, covered in ice. His silver eyes frozen open, still fixed on her. Loving you, he breathed through blue lips, was worth dying for. Then everything went black. Vesna woke to pain, not the dull ache she knew, but something sharper, a blade of fire cutting through darkness. She gasped, eyes flying open, the king's chambers, gray morning light. And beside her, motionless on the floor, lay Caden. Frost covered his entire body, skin pale blue, lips white, eyes closed beneath ice. No, Vesna breathed. No, no, no. She crawled to him, her body screaming. The shadows had retreated, coiled beneath her skin. The curse had not killed her. Her hands found his chest. Cold, so cold. But beneath the ice, faint as a whisper, a heartbeat. He was alive, barely. Frozen but not dead. Hope surged through her. If they were both alive, there had to be a way. The door burst open. Morrow rushed in, followed by guards and an ancient woman with white hair falling past her waist. "The king," a guard gasped. "He lives," Vesna said. "His heart still beats." The old woman knelt beside Kadon, pressing gnarled fingers to his throat, his chest. She closed her eyes. "The hollowing has advanced beyond anything I have seen," she said finally. "He should be dead." "But he is not," Vesna said. "Why?" The woman's eyes fixed on Vesna. "Because something is holding it back." She grasped Vesna's wrist, exposing the shadow on her skin. Another curse. Equally powerful. "Who are you?" "My name is Ilara. Last of the Veil Walkers, the witches who served Valdrin before the Purge. I know what you are, child. Shadowborn have a particular scent. Death and starlight. Can you save him? The hollowing cannot be broken, but it can be neutralized by an opposing force of equal magnitude." Vesna's breath caught. "My curse. I think it already has, partially." Your shadow reached for his ice at the same instant he confessed love. The curses collided rather than consumed. They are locked, neither able to complete its purpose. What does that mean? If you want to save him, you must let your curse consume his entirely. Take the hollowing into yourself. Take his curse? That would kill me. It would kill any normal Shadowborn. But your curse has been dormant your entire life. Suppressed. The deaths attributed to you were not your doing. Vesna shook her head. I was there. The mark burned. You felt it. But you did not cause it. Someone else triggered your curse. Someone who wanted you to believe you were dangerous. Someone who benefited from your isolation. The answer crystallized. Her father. Her father, who locked her away after her mother's death, who arranged her betrothal to a man he despised, who had always known what she was. I need to speak to him, Vesna said. I need the truth. Then go quickly. The king has hours, not days. Vesna bent and pressed her lips to Caden's frozen forehead. I will save you, she whispered. Then she ran. The journey took 6 hours. Vesna rode through the night, pushing her mount to exhaustion. By dawn, she reached the familiar iron gates. Gray stone walls, narrow windows. The tower where she had spent so many years. But she was not a prisoner anymore. The servants scattered as she strode through the entrance. Her father emerged from his study, face twisting with disgust. So, he said coldly, the prodigal shadow returns. You murdered my mother. The words fell like stones. Her father's expression did not change. That is a serious accusation. It is the truth. Mother did not die because I loved her. She died because you needed me to believe I was dangerous. You needed an excuse to lock me away. And what do you think you are capable of? I do not know yet. But I intend to find out. She grabbed his wrist. The moment they touched, she felt it. A pulse of darkness. Not her own. The same darkness she had sensed when her mother collapsed. You bear a shadow too, Vesna breathed. not Shadowborn, a shadow wielder. You learned to control the darkness, and you used mine. Orin yanked free. You understand nothing. Then explain it to me. A cold smile spread across his face. Your grandmother was Shadowborn. She passed the curse to my sister, your Aunt Marisol. I was spared the mark, but I discovered I could touch the darkness, manipulate it. Marisol was weak, even as an infant. Draining her power was simple, and it killed her. But the power extended my life. Vesna felt sick. You used my curse to kill Mother. Your mother discovered what I had done to Marisol. She found my journals, threatened to reveal everything. So you killed her and blamed me. I redirected your curse. The shadow was yours. I simply gave it a target. And my betrothed? He was going to take you away. You are far too valuable. A Shadowborn's power, properly harvested, grants immortality. I have been siphoning your curse for years. Why do you think your shadow never fully manifested? The truth crashed over her. Every tragedy, every loss, every moment of isolation, all orchestrated. You are a monster, Vesna said. I am a survivor. And now that your power has awakened, I can take everything. Your shadow. His ice. I will be unstoppable. He lunged for her, but Vesna was faster. Power erupted from her core, shadow and fire and something older. The darkness she had feared poured out, not to destroy, but to defend. Her father slammed into an invisible wall and crumpled. Vesna stood over him, skin glowing with dark light. You stole my power, but you never understood it. The Shadowborn curse is not about death. It is about balance, life and death, light and dark. She knelt, her hand closing around his throat. You took from me for 22 years. Now I am taking it back. She pulled. Darkness flowed into her. Not her own, but the pieces he had stolen. Her mother's last breath. Her betrothed's final heartbeat. Years of siphoned power flooding back. And with it came knowledge, understanding. Shadowborn were not cursed to bring death. They were conduits, bridges between worlds. They could absorb darkness and transform it. They could save those they loved. Vesna released her father. He collapsed, unconscious but alive. She rose and turned to the guards. Take him to the capital. He will stand trial for murder and treason. Then she mounted her horse and rode for Valdrin. Vesna reached the palace as the sun set. The shadows no longer burned. They sang. Ilara met her at the king's chambers. You found it. I can feel the change in you. I found the truth. My father was stealing my power. He killed everyone I thought I destroyed. She pushed open the door. Caden lay frozen on the bed. Ice covered him completely, a shell of winter sealing him away. Vesna crossed to his side and took his frozen hand. I love you, she said. I should have told you before. I was so afraid loving you would kill you. But I was never the monster. I was just a girl, taught to fear herself. She closed her eyes and reached for the shadow within. It came willingly, rising through her veins like dark water. She directed it toward Kadon, let it flow into his frozen body. The hollowing was old, ancient. It had fed on kings for generations, but her shadow was older, born of the black eclipse, forged between life and death. She wrapped her shadow around the curse and pulled. The hollowing fought. It clawed at his heart. She felt its rage, but she was stronger now. Let him go, she commanded, and the hollowing broke. It shattered like ice beneath summer sun, dissolving in her shadow and vanishing forever. Color flooded his skin. Warmth returned. His eyes opened. Vesna, he breathed. She sobbed. You are alive. He sat up, staring at his hands. I can feel, he said. I can feel my hands. The air. He looked at her, silver eyes blazing. I can feel you. He pulled her into his arms. Warm arms. How? I am Shadowborn, but not the monster I thought. The darkness inside me exists to balance the light, to save those I love. She touched his face. My father taught me to fear myself, but he could not steal who I truly am. And who I am is someone who loves you more than she fears the dark. Kadon kissed her. Not gentle, desperate, hungry, full of years of suppressed feeling. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. Marry me, he said. You already asked me to be your consort. I am asking for more. My queen, my wife, my mate in truth. What about the council? The council can rot. You saved my life, my soul. I do not care if you are cursed or covered in shadows. I love you. She kissed him again. Yes. She breathed. Yes. 3 months later, Vesna stood on the balcony, watching the crowds below. They had come to celebrate the king's wedding. She no longer wore a veil. The shadow had faded completely. She looked like any other woman, but she was Queen Vesna of Valdrin, wife of Alpha King Kadon, mother, in 6 months, of his heir. The curse on his bloodline was broken. Their children would never suffer the hollowing. Her own curse had transformed from death into healing. She trained with Alara, learning to help others trapped by magical afflictions. Her father awaited trial. Corliss had fled. Tanith, who had started everything with a foolish dare, was now her chief lady in waiting. It was only supposed to be a joke, Tanith had said. It was the best dare you ever gave me, Vesna had replied. Now, arms wrapped around her from behind. Kadon pressed warm lips to her temple. Are you ready? Vesna turned and kissed him. I was ready the moment you caught my kiss. He smiled, a real smile full of warmth and joy. Then let us go greet our people. They stepped to the balcony edge together, hand in hand. When the crowd roared, Vesna did not flinch. She raised her chin, smiled at the thousands below, and knew she had found where she belonged. Not in a tower, not in shadows, not in fear. Here, beside a man who loved her. In the light. It was only supposed to be a dare. Vesna had no business being at the Moonfire Festival. No right to stand among nobles and highborn wolves celebrating the Alpha King's 30th year. She was Shadowborn, cursed from birth. The dark crescent mark hidden beneath her gown had already cost her everything. Her mother, her betrothed, her place in the world. Legend said anyone who loved a Shadowborn would die, and Vesna had learned to believe it. So when Tanith dared her to blow a kiss at the untouchable Alpha King, Vesna thought it harmless. A moment of foolish rebellion before she disappeared back into the shadows where she belonged. She pressed her fingers to her lips and released the kiss into the crowded hall, expecting it to vanish like smoke. But Kadon, Alpha King of Valdrin, turned at that exact moment. His pale silver eyes found hers across the sea of bodies, and with one hand, casual as catching a falling leaf, he plucked the kiss from the air. The hall went silent. 1,000 wolves held their breath. Then his voice cut through the stillness, cold and absolute. Come claim it. Vesna's blood turned to ice. She should have run, should have vanished into the crowd and fled Valdrin entirely. But the king's guards were already moving toward her, and the mark on her shoulder blade was beginning to burn. He would offer her protection, power, everything a woman in her position could want. He would also make one thing perfectly clear. He would never love her. And she must never love him. Neither of them understood how impossible that promise would become.